What exactly did McLaren do to Oscar Piastri's car during the Dutch Grand Prix race that left him finishing 32 seconds behind his teammate in what should have been a dominant 1-2? The answer isn't a secret setup change or a hidden team order, but a specific mechanical failure on lap 21 involving a sticky right rear wheel gun that cost him 2.4 seconds in the pits and dropped him directly behind George Russell. That single operational error stripped away his podium position while he was running third, yet even after emerging from that disastrous stop, something else kept him from recovering the pace needed to challenge for the win. We know the wheel gun failed, and we know the time loss was catastrophic, but the deeper mystery is why Piastri then struggled so profoundly in the second half of the race without any further confirmed technical issues or strategic explanations to account for such a massive deficit. This unexplained performance drop creates a tension that hangs over the entire result, because while Lando Norris was executing a masterclass to retake the lead on lap 54, Piastri was spading into an also-ran role that contradicts his status as the defending Zandvoort winner. Was there a lingering balance issue caused by the botched stop? Or was this simply the continuation of a calamitous 2026 campaign from which he has never wholly recovered? The research confirms no deliberate modification was made to his car during the race, turning the sensational headline into a forensic investigation of a routine failure with championship-altering consequences. So where does that leave us when trying to separate mechanical fact from competitive fallout? We're left staring at a gap between teammates that cannot be fully explained by a single pit stop alone, forcing us to look at the broader context of a season where Piastri has looked like a mere shadow of his 2025 self. This opening section establishes that the thing McLaren did was an unintended mechanical fault, not a conspiracy, but the open loop remains regarding why that fault seemed to compound into a total loss of competitiveness for the remainder of the afternoon. Until we unpack the specific race dynamics and the post-race standings impact, the true cost of that sticky wheel gun remains only partially understood. The telemetry data from that lap 21 stop paints a brutally clear picture of operational failure rather than strategic intent. McLaren's pit crew encountered a sticky right rear wheel gun mechanism that refused to release cleanly, forcing the mechanics to manually intervene and costing Piastri precisely 2.4 seconds compared to a standard stop duration. He entered the pit lane running comfortably in third position with the podium spot seemingly secured, but emerged directly behind George Russell's Mercedes, instantly surrendering the track position he had spent the first 20 laps building. This wasn't a calculated decision to sacrifice his race for Norris's benefit, as some speculative paddock whispers might suggest, but a genuine equipment malfunction that occurred at the worst possible moment. The damp conditions around Zandvoort's final corner had already created treacherous grip levels throughout the early laps, yet no source links that residual moisture from pre-race showers to the wheel gun failure itself. It was purely mechanical, purely costly, entirely unintended. So what actually happened inside that pit box during those critical seconds? Reporting attributes the delay exclusively to the wheel gun sticking on the right rear hub assembly, ruling out any tire choice error or deliberate strategy call designed to manipulate the race order. Piastri had been holding P3 before pitting, meaning the car was performing adequately enough to maintain podium contention until that single moment of mechanical betrayal. The 2.4-second deficit may sound marginal on paper, but at Zandvoort's narrow, high-banked circuit where overtaking is notoriously difficult, it proved insurmountable against a driver of Russell's caliber. This transforms the narrative from conspiracy to catastrophe, because the team didn't choose to compromise Piastri's race. Their equipment simply failed them when precision mattered most. Consider the timing's cruelty. Had that stop been clean, Piastri would have retained third place and potentially pressured Antonelli ahead, keeping both McLarens in legitimate win contention. Instead, he rejoined the track trapped in dirty air behind Russell, forced to manage tires and temperatures while watching his championship hopes evaporate in real time. No technical directive or setup adjustment specific to his car was documented during the race, confirming that McLaren's only tangible interaction with his machine was this catastrophic service failure. The wheel gun issue stands alone as the sole verified mechanical intervention, stripping away any notion of deliberate performance manipulation and replacing it with the far more frustrating reality of human and mechanical fallibility under pressure. This is where the story shifts from speculation to documented fact, grounding our investigation in what actually happened rather than what sensational headlines might imply. So where does that leave us now that we've isolated the mechanical cause? We're left understanding that the thing McLaren did was fail, not conspire, but the consequences of that failure extended far beyond a single lost position. Before that wheel gun failure even became a factor, the entire Dutch Grand Prix was fundamentally reshaped on lap 2 when Max Verstappen crashed heavily into the barriers at the banked Leyendik corner. The final turn remained damp from pre-race showers despite the rest of the circuit drying, creating a deceptive grip trap that caught the home hero completely off guard and triggered an immediate red flag. This incident wiped out any initial race rhythm and forced a complete reset, setting up a high-stakes standing restart on lap 5 that would ultimately define the competitive order for the remainder of the afternoon. Chaos erupted instantly. Grip vanished completely. Flags waved frantically. Kimi Antonelli capitalized on the second chance with ruthless precision, executing a superior launch off the line and diving past Lando Norris into Tarzan corner to seize the lead before the field even settled into racing speed. Norris had retained his pole position advantage during the original start, but he did not lead again immediately after the restart, directly contradicting any simplistic narrative suggesting he controlled the event from lights to flag. Antonelli's Mercedes simply hooked up better in those critical first seconds, exploiting the bunched-up grid to overturn qualifying form and establish himself as the man to beat. This moment matters because it proves Norris's eventual victory required genuine recovery rather than comfortable management, adding legitimacy to a win some might otherwise attribute solely to Verstappen's misfortune. Norris later acknowledged in his post-race comments that he made things tough for himself, admitting that the restart setback forced him into a reactive posture rather than allowing him to dictate terms from the front. The damp Luyendyk corner had already claimed its most famous victim, but if lingering effects continue to influence racing lines and braking zones well beyond the safety car period, keeping every driver on edge through those early restart laps. Antonelli's move into Tarzan wasn't just opportunistic, it was technically flawless, demonstrating why he currently leads the Drivers' Championship by 59 points over Russell. Norris found himself chasing, rather than leading, a psychological shift that demanded patience and strategic discipline instead of raw aggression. So what we're seeing here is the foundation upon which both Piastri's later struggles and Norris's eventual triumph were built, a chaotic opening phase that separated contenders from pretenders before either McLaren had even approached their first pit window. Here's why this actually matters. Norris didn't just inherit a lead after Verstappen's crash or benefit from team orders. He earned his second consecutive victory through two distinct high-risk overtakes on lap 54 that proved McLaren's raw pace was genuine. He braked significantly later than Antonelli into the braking zone, carrying enough speed to sweep around the outside and reclaim first place in a move that required absolute commitment and zero margin for error. Later that same lap, Lewis Hamilton ran wide at turn 10, and Norris capitalized instantly by passing him through the following corner sequence to secure the net race lead without controversy. Precision defined it. Risk paid off. Victory was earned. This wasn't a gift handed down by circumstance, but a fight won through execution, which directly counters any lingering skepticism about whether McLaren's Zandvoort dominance stems from car superiority alone or opportunistic racing. Norris himself emphasized this distinction in his post-race comments, stating verbatim that it was one of his better wins and that the strategy won him the race today, while also acknowledging he made it tough for himself after losing the lead at the restart. His framing deliberately centers on earned performance rather than inherited advantage, reinforcing that both McLarens were capable of winning on merit even if only one ultimately did. The lap 54 double overtake stands as tangible proof of competitive integrity, especially given Piastri's simultaneous struggles elsewhere on track. So where does that leave us when evaluating claims of manipulation versus legitimate competition? We're left with on-track evidence that directly contradicts narratives of sandbagging or artificial results, because no driver fakes a late braking overtake on the championship leader while simultaneously managing tire degradation and dirty air. Norris crossed the line 11.536 seconds ahead of Antonelli, a gap built entirely through racing craft rather than strategic favoritism. This was McLaren's third straight Zandvoort win, extending a circuit-specific dominance that now carries historical weight as the venue prepares to exit the calendar. The stakes here extend beyond individual glory to encompass legacy, manufacturer reputation, and the ongoing constructors' battle where every point differential compounds across remaining races. Understanding how Norris secured this result becomes essential context for interpreting Piastri's parallel experience, because both drivers operated within the same machinery, yet produced vastly different outcomes under identical strategic frameworks. Remember how this all started, with that sticky right rear wheel gun on lap 21 costing Piastri 2.4 seconds and dropping him behind Russell. That mechanical failure was the only confirmed action taken on his car, yet the deeper mystery persists because he finished 6th exactly 32.332 seconds behind Norris, despite no further technical issues being reported for the remainder of the race. Sources describe this second-half deficit purely as a pace struggle without specifying whether it stemmed from tire degradation, compromised balance after the botched stop, or evolving track conditions that favored different driving styles. The gap is massive. The cause remains opaque. The slump continues. This unexplained performance drop extends far beyond Zandvoort, fitting into what media coverage describes as a calamitous start to his 2026 campaign from which he has never wholly recovered. Just 12 months ago, he stood atop this same podium as the defending winner while leading the championship by 34 points, making his current status as a mere also ran all the more jarring against recent memory. No setup change or technical directive specific to his race day machinery has been documented, meaning we cannot attribute this fate to deliberate team intervention or strategic sacrifice. Instead, we're left with an open technical question that resists easy answers, forcing us to acknowledge that some competitive deficits defy simple mechanical explanation even when telemetry exists. So, where does that leave us when trying to reconcile past dominance with present struggle? We're left recognizing that Piastri's Zandvoort experience embodies the brutal unpredictability of modern Formula One, where yesterday's champion can become today's cautionary tale without any single catastrophic failure to blame beyond that initial pit lane disaster. Norris dismantled any lingering sandbagging rumors by explicitly crediting tactical execution over artificial advantage, stating post-race that the strategy won him the race today after fighting back from his restart deficit. His emphasis on well-fought performance directly addresses speculative narratives, because no team order controversy was found for this specific Dutch Grand Prix despite sensationalist framing suggesting otherwise. The only needless and silly team order verdict in recent research traces back to the 2025 Italian Grand Prix, a completely separate event that has no bearing on Zandvoort's competitive integrity. Facts replaced fiction. Speculation died instantly. Racing spoke clearly. This distinction matters because it confirms McLaren allowed both drivers to compete freely, with Piastri's 6th place finish resulting from genuine pace issues rather than manufactured compliance. Norris had to execute 2 real overtakes on lap 54 to reclaim the lead, proving his victory emerged from on-track merit rather than pit wall manipulation.